I call this meeting of the Davenport Community School District Board of Directors to order. We appreciate your attendance at this board meeting. By attending meetings, you can learn about the accomplishments, needs, and concerns we face. The board meets regularly on the first Monday for committee of the whole meetings and the second and fourth Mondays of each month for regular meetings. Open forum for the public is available only at regular meetings. All meetings are open to the public except closed and exempt sessions, which are permitted by certain sections of the Iowa Code. All board decisions, however, are made in public open sessions. The board is not a forum, it is a deliberative body. Accordingly, it receives communications, both oral and written, as a medium of information. It does not debate the contents of such communications, but considers them in making decisions and in the establishment of policies. During each regular board meeting, there is an opportunity to address the board by completing an open forum request and giving it to the board secretary prior to the meeting. Each person may have up to 2 minutes of time to speak. This is a time of listening by the school board, so the board does not make any comments during open forum. The issue will usually be referred to the administration for further study and follow-up if necessary. When the board president recognizes you, direct your comments to the entire board and limit your remarks to 2 minutes unless extra time has been approved by the board president prior to the meeting. The school board president will recognize one speaker at a time and will rule out of order other speakers who are not recognized. Only those speakers recognized by the chair will be allowed to speak. Comments by others are out of order. The school board president shall promptly rule out of order any discussion by any person, including school board members, that would violate the provisions of state or federal law, our open forum policy, or the statutory rights of privacy of an individual. To ensure that the board can conduct the important business of the district, the following guidelines apply to all members of the public who attend board meetings. The board asks that all members of the public treat open forum speakers, district employees, and the board with respect. Individuals are not permitted to engage in conduct that interferes with the ability of other individuals to watch the board meetings, interferes with the ability of other members of the public to offer comment to the board, or interferes with the ability of the board to conduct its business. Demonstrations during public comments, such as clapping or cheering in response to either public comments or statements made by board members, is discouraged. Those wishing to display placards, signs, and/or banners may not block any attendee's view of the proceedings. Before we get started with the rest of the meeting, I just wanted to note that Director Gosa is participating by phone, and Director Beck is away for maternity rest. Is that right? Something like that. Anyway, so we'll continue on. Director Beck was going to read our board priorities, but she's not here, so I'll ask Director DeSalvo, would you read our board priorities, please?
I'd be happy to. The priorities are: the Davenport School Board establishes the following priorities to ensure the academic success of all students. Provide leadership and direction to improve the overall learning environment in our classrooms, schools, and district, including the health, safety, security, and happiness of students and staff. And direct and support actions, programs, and activities which reduce the impacts of poverty on our students, their families, and our community.
Thank you. Director Mayfield, would you read our mission and vision statements, please?
Mission statement. There we go. Vision statement. Education that challenges conventional thinking, prepares all students to compete in a global society, and inspires our students, parents, staff, and community to answer the question, what if?
Thank you very much. We have a showcase, Superintendent Tate.
We have our first showcase of the year, Bluegrass Elementary, Principal Sarah Gott, and others, apparently.
Good evening. We're excited to be here with you this evening, and we have some special students here to present. We just need about 30 seconds to get set up.
We appreciate your indulgence here. Zach. Plastic talk. You start the presentation?
Was I supposed to have two gloves laying?
Yeah. That's it.
Good evening, Superintendent Tate, Associate Superintendent Schnaden and Scott, President Johansson, Vice President Hayes, Director Gosa, Director Del Savo, Director Mayfield, Director Beck, Director Potts, school board members, student school board members, school officials, guests, and families. We are the Bluegrass Announcements team. This is Hallie Hansen, and when I grow up, I would like to be a teacher, but I am unsure.
I am Zach Hausch, and when I grow up, I'm going to be a farmer.
I'm Cody Powell, and when I grow up, I think I might be a naturalist, but I'm still unsure.
I am Kyla Wink, and when I grow up, I'm going to be a pediatrician.
We are all fifth graders at Bluegrass Elementary School, and we lead the announcements each day for Miss Scott at our school. The mission of Bluegrass Elementary is to provide all students a safe environment that fosters personal growth, academic success, and lifelong learning. We are excited to be here to celebrate our school and with you, and we cannot wait and thank you for all you do for us in this school district. We are proud to be a part of the Davenport schools, and we are also Bluegrass proud.
The invitation is always open to come out to Bluegrass and visit our school. We are only a few miles outside of the city and would love to show you all we are learning this school year. There are many things we wanted to share and celebrate with you about our school. First, we have an incredibly special community school. Our community is involved, and many of our students come from families that their parents went to our school. At this time, any students, former students, families, or staff members that are here representing Bluegrass, please stand and be recognized. Second, we all know you are driven by data. We want to celebrate with you the data for our school.
We have had the highest daily attendance at our school for the past 3+ years. This year, we are ranked the highest in the district with 97.8% for average ADA. We have the lowest number of behavioral referrals for the first month of the school year. We have had 4 referrals for the month of September. We also want to celebrate the 30 students that have received positive office recognition certificates the month of September, and 15 students that were awarded Student of the Month for September. Students also received positive Proud Paws, which are business cards from adults in our building that are impressed with our behavior. there have been thousands of these cards earned so far this year. Our academic data is the top in the district. 76% of our students were proficient in the fall on FAST testing. Last year, ending with over 80% of our students proficient on FAST testing. The last 3 years, our school has been over 80% proficient in the Iowa assessment testing in reading and math, which is also the highest in the district. We are proud of our hard work and academically at our school.
There are many special things about our school. We are a community. Academic excellence is nurtured and celebrated, and our teachers are the best. We want to recognize one of the teachers at our school. Mr. Travis Benner is a legendary teacher in the Davenport School District. He is famous in our community for being the Bill Nye the Science Guy for our school, but even better, he brings science to life, and walking into our school, he truly influences much of the success that happens. You have to come see his classroom. He has gadgets and gizmos, animals, more than you could ever imagine. We have a courtyard in the middle of our school with a greenhouse that Mr. Benner built several years ago. Outside in our courtyard are Mr. Benner's tortoises. We wanted to have an opportunity to introduce the tortoises to you this evening. Ready?
The species name of 2 of these tortoises are the Geochelona sulcata African spur thigh tortoise.
Roland hatched from an egg in 1993 and was the size of a golf ball.
Rosalita was given to Mr. Benner in 2010, and I'm not exactly sure how old she is, but she is likely to be about the same age as Roland.
These 2 are land tortoises from Africa. They are herbivores that eat plants. Here at school, they eat grass and love dandelions. In winter, they eat lots of lettuce and fruits and vegetables.
Their favorites are strawberries and bananas.
They will live up to be 150 years old.
This is the 3rd largest species on Earth behind the Galapagos and Aldabra tortoise species. The other species of tortoise is Spike, which is a leopard tortoise or Geochelone pardalis pardalis. This tortoise is a female and was Mr. Benner's first tortoise. He got her in 1992. She is at least 35 years old and is basically full size.
Spike and Roland came to Bluegrass in 1996 and have been meeting students ever since.
Spike is also a kind of tortoise that is indigenous to Africa. She is an herbivore that eats plants and loves fruits and vegetables.
Tortoises don't have teeth, but they do have a beak, which is similar to a bird's beak. A tortoise's skin is waterproof to help them live in dry areas like the savannas in Africa.
African lions live in the same savannas as leopard tortoises and love to eat them when they can find them. Their camouflage helps them blend into the dry grasses where they live. Tortoise shells are made of bone and are covered by a thin layer of keratin, which is like our fingernails.
Keratin is a protein that is found in a bird's feather, a fish's scales, and even our own hair.
All shelled reptiles, including snapping turtles, painted turtles, tortoises, and even sea turtles, have exactly 13 scutes on top of their shells. A scute is one section of their shell.
Would any of you like to pet them? If you do, we have gloves for you to wear.
Thank you for your time. We love our school and invite you to come and visit and see where we learn and where the tortoises live.
Don't be leaving yet. There might be a couple questions or comments from the board. Are there any? Director Hayes?
That was a nice very nice presentation. Couple clarifying questions I need. I think you asked the question, Cody. You said there were how many students of the month? Was it 50 or 15?
There were 15 students of the month.
Okay, thank you very much. And you said Mr. Brenner was famous for being called what? And I apologize because I was watching your principal hand feed these turtles, and I just kind of lost track of some of the things that you were saying. But I do apologize. What did you call him? He was famous for being called what?
The Bill Nye the Science Guy.
Oh, okay, thank you. And lastly, you mentioned the strawberries and lettuce and bananas that you feed during the winter months. Who provides that? Do you all bring it, or how do they get the foods that they like?
I'm pretty sure Mr. Benner brings them.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much.
Any other comments? Director DeSalvo.
Okay, so I think you said they're in the courtyard now, but what do you do in the winter?
He keeps them in a room in his classroom, and he gives them food, and I think he has a tarp down, and then they just stay in there where
Nice.
it's warm.
So clearly you all have learned a lot about these tortoises, haven't you? What else do you like in school? Tell me other things that you're studying that you enjoy. I mean, this is pretty darn cool, but don't be shy. You can tell me Jim, and that would be fine.
In math, we've been learning about decimals.
Very good. Nice.
In math, we've been learning about decimals too.
Good.
In art, we are learning about surrealism.
Nice.
In reading, we've been doing summarizing paragraphs and stories, and we've also been working on a special person for writing.
Great. Cody?
And in science, we did this after announcements one morning, so we had to get an emergency meeting to get all this information in. But in science right now, we're working on the project is called infection detection.
Wow. Well, I think you are all really, really good public speakers, and the reports that you compiled for us tonight, I'm really, really impressed with what you did. So, and I love your friends. You're going to have to tell me their names again, but they're very lucky to have you guys taking care of them. So thanks for bringing them tonight. I think this is something that we've never seen before. Love it. So thank you. Keep up the good work.
Anybody else? Director Gosa, you didn't have a chance to see these tortoise, are they tortoises or?
Yes.
Okay. But one of them must weigh 30 pounds. But do you have any comments for the students?
No, I think they did a very good job and very well spoken. It sounds like it was a great presentation that I missed out on. So.
Yep. It's too bad that you're not here with us. So I got Zach and Cody and Kyla, and I missed your name.
Hallie.
Hallie. Thank you.
Roland, and that one's Spike.
So we may have to postpone the rest of the meeting so that Director DeSalvo can play with the tortoises. But in all seriousness, I hope the board members will take a minute, go pet the tortoises. But thank you, Principal Gott. This is amazing, and you students are just really cool. And science is cool. It's great to see you all enjoying it like that. But I really, really appreciate Zach, Cody, Kyla, and Hallie for taking the time, and thank you parents for being good parents and for coming here and supporting the kids. So thank you very much. And with that, we'll move on.
Thank you. And I just want to point out, Mr. Schnaden often talks about pockets of excellence in our district, and Mr. Benner is phenomenal. And if you ever get a chance to come out and see a teacher in action, he is a true gift to our community and to our school
All right.
district. So
thank you, Mr. Benner. So next, while we're playing with the tortoises, we also have a presentation, Superintendent Tate. Well, we can start getting ready. I'm not sure.
My immediate thought was snapping turtles.
Oh, yeah.
I used to hand fish,
Oh,
and when you stuck your hand down into a hole, sometimes the turtles would get you,
ooh.
and they clamp on.
Clamp on. How would you get them to release?
They'd let you go
Would they?
when you pull hard enough.
Oh, okay,
The
good.
fact that they come down on them is pretty.
They're amazing.
Superintendent Tate, you're missing your opportunity.
I go to this class every time I go out there.
Oh, do you?
It's an amazing class. You gotta walk in.
All right, board members, we're gonna have to get back to work here. Board members. What is that one, the one movie where the student, Reuben, except that's the wrong name. What's his name? That's not the right name. I wish I could remember it. I would say it right now. No, it was a kid who skipped school.
That was different.
No. It's a two-syllable word for a first name.
That's the name of the movie, the kid's name. I sent
Nah, we're okay.
video.
We're okay. Hmm. You ready? Thank you all. Thank you, parents and community members. All right. We'll go ahead and continue with our meeting. Superintendent Tate, we have a presentation.
Thank you very much. The old adage, never follow children or animals, but Gary Thrapp is here to talk about city championship.
I wish there was lettuce still left. I would probably have some. Hi, everybody. My name's Gary Thrapp. I don't know what I want to be when I grow up, but I'm trying. Do you have the little thingies? I'm with Beyond the Baseline here in Davenport and work a lot out in the schools. About 3 years ago, when we started doing a lot of community-based stuff and a lot of different events in our community, we established the Quad City Youth Sports Foundation, which is a 501c3 established. Okay. Over the summer, in doing some research with the youth summits that we're doing out at the schools, we established the Davenport City Championship. It combines athletic and academics here with our 3 public schools. Reached out over the summer to each of the 3 athletic directors in the schools, and then once organized, talked with Paul Flynn about it, and each of the schools and athletic directors were very excited about it. In fact, one of them wanted to include academics in it as well, so once you see kind of how it works, and we did pass out a flyer with it as well. So as you see, this is the logo that we use, and it suggests or shows that each of the school's colors are included in it. And then the trophy that you see, there is actually a trophy at each of the schools, so they can, have it on display to generate some enthusiasm. Okay. Again, in doing some continual research, we're out at the schools, at your schools, doing some youth summits to help reduce violence in our community. We're out at Davenport Northwest and Central, working with each of the freshmen throughout the school year, and right now at 3 of the junior highs, doing our anti-violence summits. In doing research to see what other communities do to reduce violence, one thing that becomes very apparent, one concept is to help the schools in your community gain a lot of pride in their schools and try to develop pride in the schools. So whatever the community can do outside of the schools and with the schools in partnership is an added bonus. So that's where this was established. This is a 12-step plan as part of that research to reduce violence. One of the 12 steps is to try to help you in our community get less dropouts. One community and organization that I found that did some research on who the kids that are struggling the most in a school will listen to. It's typically the best athletes, the smartest kids, the kids that are most involved in their schools. So the city championship was kind of designed to help try to boost the leadership with those kids that are, the other kids will listen to. So that's kind of the inspiration behind that. This is what you received, is basically how it breaks down. So we're trying to have a yearly competition to see which schools of the 3 has the most points. And I'm not going to explain it very well, quite honestly. I've explained it one-on-one or two-on-one, but never in a public format, so I'm not very good at it yet. So maybe I'll be good at it someday. But essentially, we have broken down each of the athletic competitions that Davenport Northwest and Central compete against each other. So as an example, you'll see all the fall sports are listed there, as well as winter, spring, and summer. Football being the top one there, we go by head-to-head competition. So after each of the 3 schools compete against each other, points are awarded to each of the schools. So I think Central beat North and West, so they get 3 points. I think North was in the middle, they got 2 points, and West got 1 point. So every sport gets points based on how they do against the other schools throughout the season. So it's a year-long competition that'll, start over each year, and it's a way to help each of the sports, each of the schools kind of develop a pride within themselves. And as a coach, I've been coaching for 35 years, you look for many different ways to motivate kids on your team. So there's so many different opportunities here to, push school pride to the schools with each of the sports listed. Now, the academic part is that not only will 5 points be awarded per sport based on the athletic side, but 5 points will be awarded based on team GPA. So as team GPA comes out, then more points will be added. So there's a total of, throughout the year, 126 points awarded to the school, 2 schools, okay? So here's where we're at so far. So keeping track of the fall sports, you see we pay attention to each of the sports listed, or as each competition is made. The first one being volleyball on August 28th, Central defeated North, as you can see. So once each team does that round robin, then we award 3, 2, and 1 points. We're down to tonight being the last competition athletically with girls swimming between Central and North. So once that competition is over tonight, we'll award points in girls swimming. October 19th is when the team GPAs come out. So then each sport will be awarded points based on how their team did for the GPA. So it'll basically double all the points. Okay. Here's where we're at so far as the points being awarded based on how they've done. Davenport Central is leading with 13 points. They've won the head-to-head competition in volleyball, football, girls cross country. Davenport North has 9. They've won boys golf, and Davenport West has 8 points. They won boys cross country. I think that's it. Oh, okay. So Davenport City Championship, a yearly competition combining athletics and academics. In fact, it was Brian Erlinger, the AD at Central, whose thought was when he saw it, he goes, "This is really cool. Why don't we add team GPA to it?" So there was some good energy there for sure. And all the other, and Mosier and Peterson at the other schools was said, "Yeah, that would be awesome." So bottom line, we're looking to just find different ways to develop pride in schools. So this is one easy way to do that. It begins each year with the fall sports, and then it ends with the final baseball and softball games during the summer. And then the trophy for the team that won will be presented to the winning school at the first fall football game the following year. So maybe before the game or during halftime or something like that. So again, all the schools are on board with it. Paul Flynn has endorsed it as well. And we would invite you to be there, when we hand the trophy to the winning athletic director and principal. We'd love to have you guys there and make it a good community-based event. So, any questions? Sorry about my poor ability to explain it. And thanks, Ms. Hayes, for inviting me, and Dr. Tate.
You did a great job.
Oh, thank
You don't need to apologize for anything. Are there any comments or questions? Director Hayes.
Thank you so much for coming also, Gary.
Sure, thank you.
You had listed the 3 schools up there. How, if at all, is Mid-City incorporated in that? Are they, or?
Not at the moment. I'm open, as I had mentioned to each of the athletic directors and admin, that I'm open to suggestions for sure. I went, and then of course Assumption's not listed as well, but that's primarily because they don't offer all the sports and they don't play head-to-head against all the schools. So this was designed, primarily for the 3 schools, but I would certainly be open to, including Mid-City as it could, if it's a good fit, for sure.
Okay, thanks.
You bet.
Anybody else? Director Potts.
I just want to commend you on this. This
Oh,
is really, really good stuff.
Sure.
I think this is, years ago when 9th graders were in the junior high, we used to have basketball tournament, a wrestling tournament. We'd have a
Yeah.
city championship.
Yeah.
And it really has a positive impact on the schools, that
Yeah.
kind of focused competition on your crosstown rivalry.
Sure.
And I just think this is wonderful idea, especially feeding in that academic piece.
Sure.
So
Well,
you're to be commended. You're to be
Well,
commended.
I wish I was the inventor, but, I copy a lot of things on what other communities
You are
do,
the
so we'll
messenger.
take that copy.
You're the
right?
messenger.
That's right.
Anybody else? Director DeSalvo.
I was just going to say the same thing as Director Potts, that I think this is really, really a good program, and I would like to see it continue and grow and evolve into other areas or other competitions. So I think it's a really, really great program, and I'm happy to see that it's moving forward. So thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome. And there's really no downside to it, it doesn't seem like, and
Yeah.
it's very simple to keep
Yeah.
track of.
Yeah.
And it just only has positive, results, or only
Good.
can have positive results.
You commented a little bit about the junior highs and reducing violence, and
Yeah.
I would like to, I think Director Potts was kind of headed there too, that maybe we even go down to the other levels of, I don't know if you do intermediate competitions or something, but
Absolutely. I that's, I like how you think.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yep.
Anybody else? Brady, remember to let me know if you need to make a comment. Do you? All right. Okay, good.
I was thinking maybe at halftime of that football game when we present the trophy that you all would maybe do some football passes or something. We'll see who's got the best follow through. What do you got?
Sure.
You got a follow through yet,
Last
Mayfield?
time I broke that little finger when I passed.
Oh, really?
Yeah, right into
No
the helmet of one
excuses,
of the
sir.
kids. Right.
All right. And Director Gosa, do you have anything?
No, it was a great presentation, and keep up the great work, Gary.
Thank you.
Appreciate everything you do.
You bet. Thank you.
Yep. I don't think I can say anything beyond what's been said, but thank you very much.
You're
Great
welcome.
presentation. Good stuff.
bet.
Thanks a lot.
You bet.
Superintendent Tate, we have student board reports.
Brady, we'll start and finish with you.
All right, so I have Central, and Esme sent me Norris reports, but I don't have any of Wes. So starting with Central, the Student Hunger Drive is encouraging students to donate money or non-perishable food items in the most creative way possible. What we're doing is playing obnoxious songs during passing time over the speaker. I don't know if you're familiar. I don't know if you're familiar with the Gummy Bear song, but that's the one that's been playing. And so that'll go until about $300 is met, and all proceeds will be given to the Riverbend Food Bank. And the Marching Blue Devils finished 5th out of 33 bands at the Northern Illinois University Red and Black Fall Classic. Central is the only band representing Iowa and beat out other schools throughout the Midwest. Last Thursday, our school had hundreds of students donate blood at the blood drive hosted by our drama department. And tomorrow night, Central is holding a FAFSA night to help students and their families apply for financial aid for higher education. And lastly, Central will be hosting a dental bus on October 17th to help students with preventative care. And for North, their student council is making great progress in the Student Hunger Drive. If you wish to contribute, there are donation cans at all registers at Fairway on 53rd and Tyson's on Kimberly. North will be performing at the state marching band contest on Saturday in Muscatine. We are hoping to get high-ranking results. A special congratulations goes out to TJ Vesey and Demia Johnson, who have earned a delegate spot in the IJAG National Student Leadership Academy in Washington, D.C. in November. And lastly, Junior Priest Sheedy was named Athlete of the Week on the QC Varsity Prep Spotlight hosted by the QC Times.
Thank you, Brady. One-man show.
All right, is that our student board reports?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Are there any board reports? Director DeSalvo.
Last week on Tuesday, we had the fall gathering, formerly called the Ice Cream Social, where we invite our local legislators and the community and students and staff to come visit. And we had a really good group of attendees. We had several students there from Mid-City and Central that attended. And we had Senators Lofgren, Lycrum, and Smith there, and then Representatives Monica Kurth, Phyllis Thiede, and Cindy Winkler. So we had very good discussions. We had good roundtable conversations. I've got some notes that I have to pass on to Mary, but it was a really good event, and very happy that our legislators were able to make it. So again, on behalf of the Legislative Advocacy Committee, we are certainly encouraging people to vote, and we talked a lot about voting that night as well. So thank you.
Are there any other board reports? Okay, I've got a couple. And the first one is a little bit long, so I got to read it. Every person in this room cares about kids. Every person in the Davenport Community School District cares about kids. Kids are what this whole district is about. The board cares for all students in this district and for each student. Prior to the special ed audit, although I knew there were challenges, I didn't know there was a problem in special ed, and specifically a systemic issue in our district regarding disproportionality. I had never really given thought to disproportionality as it has been addressed in the citations. Board responsibilities generally are focused on financial and policy issues. We tend to be concerned with student achievement for all kids. I searched through the Iowa Code and found no references on disproportionality. I would not, and our board is not, and I would venture to guess that very few in our community are experts in disproportionality. However, this is one of the key charges that the department has found our district to be in non-compliance. When I started to research disproportionality, I was looking for the effects of disproportionality. What I found was that many people suggest a strong correlation between suspensions and expulsions and a pipeline to prison. This idea is horrible. And whether this is identified in the Iowa Code as a board responsibility or not is immaterial to the idea that we must address the issue head on. Every student must have the best opportunities to succeed. These opportunities cannot be diminished because of our prejudices or biases, however they exist. We do appreciate the audit, as it has helped identify deficiencies in our system. We absolutely appreciate the Department of Ed and their support by providing Sandy Schmitz to help us with disproportionality. Vice President Linda Hayes and I have been discussing this issue, the audit, citations, disproportionality, for a while, trying to figure out what the board roles and the responsibilities are regarding disproportionality. The administration, the superintendent, the director of special ed, and many others are working hard to resolve the citations along with their regular responsibilities. Vice President Hayes and I believe that it is an important leadership responsibility of the board to monitor the district's successes in resolving disproportionality. The board needs to understand in a real-time basis what is happening. The administration can certainly make presentations to the board, but it would not do to have a presentation on disproportionality at every meeting. The board needs to be more actively involved in these systemic issues, especially disproportionality. Vice President Linda Hayes has volunteered to help the board be more engaged and be more aware of these. She will be developing and defining the role over time since it is brand new. But basically, she will, and she's going to comment after I'm done here, she will, in addition to her other responsibilities, act as a liaison to the board. She will keep us informed of what's going on, what progress is occurring, what does the board need to do now to expedite the process or provide resources to assist the administration in these efforts. She will provide a constant, consistent force at the board table so that we can make a difference in disproportionality in our district and community. Having said all that, I won't even make my other report. I might make it after Vice President Hayes has a report. Vice President Hayes.
Thank you. In reversing just a tiny bit, I do want to send board condolence out to the families of Andrea Levy, who is a special education teacher at Walcott. Previous teachers also that recently passed in the district were Barb Hess and Linda McClurg. I attended the NAACP banquet where President and CEO Derek Johnson spoke, and his topic was Don't Hate, Vote. So in reference to what Director DeSalvo said, this year is a very critical year and everyone needs to vote. Last week, we actually toured the CTE lab at West High School. The only thing I can say about that was amazing. I was thrilled to see the amazing opportunities available to students that may or may not have planned for secondary education. The classes basically provide the necessary tools to make a decent wage even for those who choose not to go to college. One of the more fun events I did last week was I had heard several complaints from parents regarding a particular bus. Through Dr. Tate and Transportation, Mr. Maloney, they made arrangements for me to ride a bus. I rode a school bus in the morning. It was nothing like I expected. It was actually an amazing experience. The children were well behaved. They were very pleasant. There was no snafus whatsoever. Kudos to the bus driver, very respectful. He had a real relationship with the students, and I think, oftentimes how we treat people has a lot to do with our relationship. So that trip was actually a nice ride to be able to take that bus. President Johansson discussed the issues that our district has been forced to address. As unfortunate as it is, I too appreciate the audit. It has really put the brakes on the status quo. This is the way things are done. In most cases, I do not personally feel that some of the issues are intentional malice. However, I cannot say that in all certainty. Some individuals are just not equipped to deal with or understand people of color, especially young males of color, thus creating the pipeline to prison and even in some extreme cases, the pipeline to death. Free time is the devil's workshop. By this, I simply mean, if I act up in class, if I get loud, if I cuss or threaten you, your initial response is to kick me out. You have no idea if I will carry out those threats or not. You have no idea what happened to me that morning, what happened to precipitate my anger. You're just acting on how I acted when I got there. Your only recourse basically kick me out and you have no idea how to even handle me. This is something that people of color have been forced to live with for many, many years. Now that the elephant has been brought forward, business cannot and will not remain as usual. I've accepted responsibility to work as a liaison between administration, Sandy Smith from the state and the board and the community to provide information as to what is being done to correct this horrific situation. I meet with this group each Monday for an hour. I did attend a meeting last week, and I have another meeting scheduled for Friday morning for an hour and a half. During each board meeting, beginning October 22nd, when we give board reports, I will provide the board and the community with real-time information stemming from what was discussed at those meetings. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I have one other report, and part of it is what's going to happen, but part of it is what I've been working on. Tomorrow we have a meeting at the SBRC in Des Moines, or Ankeny, I don't even recall. Okay. And the superintendent, the CFO, and probably at least 2 board members will be going. I am going to be prepared to make some remarks to the SBRC if I have the opportunity. And I just wanted to let the board know that although I don't have my remarks prepared, they will be before we go. The time is so limited at this SBRC that you have to have your remarks prepared. We only have about 5 minutes total to make the presentation. So I may get like 45 seconds. The purpose of my words, though, will be to talk about the board's position and perspective relative to the budget, taxes, things like that. And I just wanted the board to be aware that that's going to happen, and if I get a chance, I'll be making those comments. Okay, any other reports? All right, we'll move on to communications.
I have comments on disproportionality.
Although it's unusual, go ahead.
Well, sitting here listening, I'm glad that we're addressing the issue. It's something that we've had to deal with not only in the last 5 years, but I would say the 40 years that I've been involved in education. I'm not trying to place blame, but I'm basically looking at reality as to how it's been. You often hear me speak of how our students of color are doing on the higher level classes. We are always focusing on, let's say, special ed and where they're not doing so well. That concerns me. It concerns me because if you're concerned about how students are treated on one end, we also need to be concerned about how they're treated on the higher level. When we toured West High School, my question was, where are the kids of color? Where are the, should I say, females? Were they represented or not? Now, I know that there's all different types of reasons why it is that way, but the question is, how do we change it? And we have not been very good at changing those dynamics up to now. I think it all starts within the schools, the lower level schools, and kids being prepared. I would have some conversation with some people about tracking, that we don't track anymore. That has stopped with our students. But yet, when you look at a higher level class and it's separated between those that can and those that can't, then in reality, we're still doing a type of tracking that those kids a less ability. You know, we always talk about we're going to do something different in the district to attract kids here. You know, if we're able to change those dynamics where we talk about all kids be treated a certain way, well, I listen to that, and if we look at the reflection of what is happening, it's not happening. It's not true. We may thrive to do that, but we are not doing that. And look at our educational system. I'm not just talking about Davenport. This is going on in many different places, that it's great in theory that that's happening, but it hasn't happened. There's far too many high representation of people of color when it comes to the negative aspect. It's already been documented that those with low ability in third grade, the chances of them going to prison is greater. We know all these things, but yet we can put a man on the moon, but we can't do anything about changing the circumstance of people. I always believe that if we have the will, we can do it. I've seen great successes in this school system. I've seen great successes with people of color within entire schools, not just few individuals that may have support at home. I've seen entire schools really change that dynamic. But we don't often go by those successes that we have. For some reason or another, we don't see that as success, or at least not any success that we can sustain. So I applaud the fact that this has came to the table, that we need to talk about it. But I don't think we just need to talk about the lower levels. We need to talk about the higher levels as well, as to why it's not happening and what we're going to do to change it. If we want to attract more students to this district, that aspect of what has happened in the past has to change. Otherwise, we're defeating ourselves. So I wanted to mention that, and thank you for letting me have that opportunity to speak.
Thank you very much for your comments. And I know that I have complete confidence in Vice President Hayes and in her leadership in this effort and in keeping this whole issue in front of the board. And I think it's the board's responsibility. It's a leadership issue, I believe, and I'm confident that we will be successful. And your words are appreciated, and I'm sure that she will be figuring out how to lead us in all of that. So thank you very much. Okay, we'll move on to communications. Vice President Hayes.
I'll be happy to. October 9th, Tuesday, School Budget Review Committee meeting, Grimes State Office Building at 400 East 14th Street in Des Moines. Second floor ICN room. Meeting starts at 9:30 a.m. Davenport School scheduled for 10:20 a.m. On Tuesday, October 9th at 7 o'clock, the band spectacular at Brady Stadium has been rescheduled for Monday, October 15th, same time. October 16th, Tuesday, 5:30, LZAC meeting, ASC Jim Hester Boardroom. October 22nd, Monday, 6 p.m., regular board meeting, ASC Jim Hester Boardroom. October 24th, Wednesday, 5 p.m., Legislative Advocacy Committee here in the ASC Jim Hester Boardroom. And also that same day at 4:30, Rural School Advocates of Iowa annual meeting will be held in Ankeny. November 5th, Monday, 5:30 p.m., Committee of the Whole meeting, ASC Jim Hester Boardroom. November 12th, Monday, holiday, we're closed. November 13th, Tuesday, 6 p.m., regular board meeting, also held here in ASC Jim Hester Boardroom.
Thank you very much. Next is open forum. We have one open forum request. Open forum is a time for members of the community to give input at a board meeting regarding school district issues or concerns. Individuals who want to speak should fill out an open forum request and give it to the board secretary prior to open forum. The board will not act on any issue presented during open forum if it was not published as an agenda item. The Iowa Open Meetings law prohibits action on any issue that is not on the agenda. The president will set the amount of time allowed for individuals to speak during open forum. The board asks that no charges or complaints be made against individual employees of the district or community during open forum. Remarks that reflect negatively on the character or motives of any person will be called out of order. We have the one request is from David Stage. And David, why don't you come up, give us your name and address, and tonight you can have 3 minutes if you'd like.
Thank you, sir. Dave Stage, 1907 West 3rd Street, Davenport, Iowa. I'm here to talk about outsourcing. I know I was here before. Outsourcing is what it does is it takes our tax dollars and sends it to a different state. We're going to take $3 million of our tax dollars, send to wherever for an outsourcing company. They're going to give us back $1 million. So we're losing $2 million of our tax dollars a year to outsource. That's underestimating the whole ability of what will really happen. They'll come in, they'll underbid, and in the long run, it's going to cost us. It's going to cost the taxpayers in the long run. It's a proven fact. There's no way around it. Look at what the buses are doing to us. There's not one school out there. In town, they're all going the same time. Out in town, Walcott, my little grandson has to go to school at 9 o'clock in the morning. Kindergarten guy, 9 o'clock in the morning, gets off at 4. That's hard on a little kindergarten guy. And that's because of our buses. That is the way it works. And if we had the buses in our control, we wouldn't have our little guys going to school that late in the afternoon when they're ready to nap, relax. But anyway, outsourcing is wrong. It takes our tax dollars and it tears it up. And why? To bring in new management? We already have management. We have good management. We've had good management for years. We've tried this, I don't know how many years. It seems like about every 5-6 years this outsourcing comes up. The last time we talked about outsourcing, we had Jim Kruger, our last supervisor from Davenport Schools, come, spoke with you guys, told you point blank, it don't work. Years ago, they did all the investigating they could do. They went out to schools that have outsourced. These schools are telling them it just don't work. We got people right now, our motivation in the district, there is none. The morale is gone. People don't realize if they're going to have a job. Sure, Doc Tate says on his news reports and that it works, that people will stay, they'll keep their job. It's not the same. You know, when you work for a company and they come in and take it right out from under you, it's hard. And it's just hard. There's a lot of people out there that are hurting because they don't know if they're going to still be working for the Davenport Schools in 6 months or a year from now. It's hard, people, and it's all in your hands. And I believe we need to get this nonsense over with. You guys need to take a vote on this thing and get it done because people are hurting. It's wrong, and it's shameful. And there's no excuse to have people think this way or go through these thoughts because we can't manage our money in your eyes. When we got the right people in place, and all outsourcing does is bring in new management, and we have the management here today, and it's hard to come to work every day thinking that you're nothing because they want to outsource you. And it's not just the custodial department. From what I'm being told, every department's being looked at. Well, that's shameful. I can't tell you any plainer than that. It's wrong to make these people think that they could lose their job. There's no excuse for it. I'm sorry. Have a good day.
Thank you, Dave, for your comments. And it is really important to the board always to get comments from our constituents, our employees, our community members. We'll move on to the consent agenda. May I have a motion?
Mr. President,
Director Hayes.
I move that the board accept the consent agenda as written.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? All right, we'll call for the vote. Director Hayes?
Yes.
Director Potts?
Yes.
Director DeSalvo?
Yes.
Director Mayfield?
Yes.
Director Gosa? Oh, he's not? Okay, so he is not going to participate in the meeting, at least for now. And we have a quorum. I'm going to continue the meeting without his vote. So I guess we'll just say absent. And my vote is yes, motion carries. Thank you. May I have a motion regarding the approval of bills?
Mr. President,
Director DeSalvo.
I move that the following resolution that is recommended by administration for the adoption of bills for the bill listing periods of September 20th, 2018 through October 3rd, 2018. Resolved, all claims presented to the board having been duly certified as correct by the secretary, reviewed by the administration and board members, and they are hereby audited and allowed as just claims and warrants drawn on the treasury for the several amounts. Further resolve, the payment of claims and salaries be approved as presented for the periods of September 20th, 2018 through October 3rd, 2018.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? All right, we'll call for the vote. Director DeSalvo?
Yes.
Director Hayes?
Yes.
Director Mayfield?
Yes.
Director Potts?
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. Thank you. Superintendent report.
Thank you. Reminder, when we put together our Vision 2020, part of the plan is to go from a block to traditional schedule in 2021. That means that freshmen going into our schools next school year, 1920, will have to have a different schedule, which means that they are beginning to do that scheduling now. I just wanted to let you know things are moving in November to get ready for going from block to traditional in 2021 because we have to be prepared to do that. Central IJAG teacher James Porter was named as an IJAG Peak National Performance Teacher. He was nominated by the state for the achievement of their classes. He's a great teacher, and we will at one time bring together some folks to remind us what the IJAG program is about. And that completes my report for tonight.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to other items requiring action. May I have a motion which includes reading the complete resolution to conduct the special election on December 11th, 2018 for Pebble.
Mr. President,
Director DeSalvo.
I move that the board accept the administration's recommendation to approve the following resolution calling a special election on December 11th, 2018 to approve a voter-approved PEPL physical plant and equipment levy for 10 years commencing July 1st, 2019 through June 30th, 2029. Whereas it is deemed necessary and advisable by the Board of Directors of the Davenport Community School District in the counties of Scott and Muscatine, State of Iowa, to levy a voter-approved physical plant and equipment property tax not exceeding $1.34 per $1,000 of assessed valuation for a period of 10 years, commencing on July 1st, 2019, to be placed in the physical plant and equipment levy fund and expended for the purchase of improvements of grounds, the construction of schoolhouses or buildings, and opening roads to schoolhouses or buildings, the purchase of buildings, and the purchase, lease, or lease purchase of a single unit of equipment or technology exceeding $500 in value per unit. The payment of debts contracted for the erection of or construction of schoolhouses or buildings, not including interest on bonds, procuring or acquisition of library facilities, repairing, remodeling, reconstructing, improving, or expanding the schoolhouses or buildings, and additions to existing schoolhouses, expenditure for energy conservation, the rental of facilities under Chapter 28E, purchase of transportation equipment for transporting students, purchase of buildings or lease purchase option agreements for school buildings, equipment purchases for recreational purposes, payments to a municipality or other entity as required by law, and all other lawful purposes. And whereas the submission of the proposition for the levy of such tax to the electors of the school district at a special election to be held December 11, 2018, is authorized pursuant to Iowa Code Sections 277.2 and 298.2. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Board of Directors of the Davenport Community School District in the counties of Scott and Muscatine, State of Iowa, as follows. Section 1, that a special election is hereby called in order to be held in and for the Davenport Community School District in the counties of Scott and Muscatine, State of Iowa, on December 11, 2018, at which there shall be submitted to the voters of said school district the following proposition to wit. Shall the Board of Directors of the Davenport Community School District in the counties of Scott and Muscatine, State of Iowa, levy a voter-approved physical plant and equipment property tax not exceeding $1.34 per $1,000 of assessed valuation for a period of 10 years, commencing on July 1st, 2019, to be placed in the physical plant and equipment levy fund and expended for the purchase and improvement of grounds, the construction of schoolhouses or buildings, and opening of roads to schoolhouses or buildings, the purchase of buildings, and the purchase, lease, or lease purchase of a single unit of equipment or technology exceeding $500 in value per unit. The payment of debts contracted for the erection or construction of schoolhouses or buildings, not including interest on bonds, procuring or acquisition of library facilities, repairing, remodeling, reconstructing, improving, or expanding the schoolhouses or buildings and additions to existing schoolhouses, expenditures for energy conservation, the rental of facilities under Chapter 28E, purchase of transportation equipment for transporting students, purchase of buildings or lease purchase option agreements for school buildings, equipment purchases for recreational purposes, payments to a municipality or other entity as required by law, and all other lawful purposes. Section 2, in accordance with the provisions of Iowa Code 298.2, 47.6, and 49.53, the County Commissioner of Elections of Scott County is hereby authorized and instructed to include in the notice of said special election to be published pursuant to the provisions of Iowa Code 49.53, a notice of the aforesaid proposition. Section 3, the Secretary of the Board of Directors of the school district is hereby authorized and directed to deliver a duly executed certified copy of this resolution to the County Commissioner of Elections of Scott County, Iowa, and is further authorized and directed to take such actions as are necessary to have the aforementioned proposition placed on the ballot for the special election to be held on December 11th, 2018.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion? Director DeSalvo.
Claudia, can you just tell the public where we're at right now with this levy? What we assess right now per thousand?
Currently, the voted portion of the levy is 97 cents, and the board-approved portion is 32.73 cents. We're recommending an increase of the voter portion from 97 cents to the $1.34.
And can you tell us where that compares with surrounding districts to our district?
I had that information for you. Let me find it here. Bettendorf, Muscatine, and Pleasant Valley are all at the $1.34 rate. North Scott is currently at the 97 cents.
That's all I had. Thank you.
Any other discussion? All right, we'll call for the vote. Director DeSalvo.
Yes.
Director Hayes.
Yes.
Director Potts.
Yes.
Director Mayfield.
Yes.
And my vote is yes. Motion carries. Thank you. May I have a motion regarding approval of the application to the SBRC for excess costs of LEP? Director Potts.
I move that the board approve the administration's recommendation to approve the application to the SBRC for modified supplemental amount for excess costs of the LEP program in the amount of $1,277,937, or as determined by the Iowa Department of Education following DE audit reviews, in order to provide 100% spending authority for the 2018 actual ELL program costs.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Director DeSalvo.
Sorry. So how did we come so under? How did we spend so much more than what we had budgeted for this?
A lot of this comes from the information that we submit in our certified annual report. start out with an allotted amount. We report our actual costs, and we are allowed then each year to request the spending authority to cover those expenses.
And this typically has been approved in the past?
Yes, it has.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Anybody else? I just have a couple of either concerns or questions. One is, since this is being compensated in arrears, right? We've already incurred all those expenses.
Right, we've already spent all that money. It's requesting the spending authority.
I understand. But legitimately, it costs the district money to pay for that money in history, and then we can't charge them interest on the money that they haven't paid us. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And that's, where was the amount? It was quite a bit of money. $1 million, even at a few percent, that would be something significant. That bothers me. The other part that bothers me is that we aren't guaranteed to get that. It's an assumption that we make that they're going to say okay. And so we're going out with our hat in our hand to the SBRC to ask for this money for this purpose. And we hope that they're going to at least allow us this amount. Is that correct?
Yes, this portion of our request for the spending authority is by no means guaranteed, but it is, in my view, maybe a little more expected because the Department of Ed has programs set up that it calculates these costs, and basically they are facilitating our request for the spending authority. So I think it's a common practice, maybe not with every district, but certainly in many districts that incur those costs.
And I understand, but some of this, I'll bet if they were to rank the districts in the state, I'll bet we would be one of the highest. I would imagine that the expenditures are somewhat dependent on the size of your district, the demographics of your district, things like that. But $1 million just seems like a lot. I'll just say it at that, and then maybe our legislative advocacy committee can get the laws changed so that we can charge interest. Is there any additional discussion? All right, if there's no more, we'll call for the vote. Director Potts?
Yes.
Director Hayes?
Yes.
Director Mayfield?
Yes.
Director DeSalvo?
Yes.
And my vote is yes. Motion carries. Thank you. May I have a motion regarding approval of contracts for voluntary statewide preschool program?
Mr. President,
Director Hayes.
I move that the board approve the following contracts with partner sites in providing the voluntary statewide preschool program for the following amounts. All Saints, $163,825.09. Calvary, $92,120.23. Friendly House, $81,140.74. Growing Tree, $104,826.46. Head Start, $98,899.28. John F. Kennedy, $244,595.08. Noah's Ark, $111,179.58. Positive Parenting, $41,295.27. Scott County Family Y, $169,377.79. St. Alphonsus, $63,531.19. St. Ambrose, $49,224.88. St. Paul's Lutheran, $107,443.54. St. Paul's the Apostle, $123,885.82. And Trinity Lutheran, $225,500 $35.72.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Director DeSalvo.
Okay, so these are contracts we have with them to provide preschool programs. Where does this money come from? Are these all grant-based? Thank you.
This is actually money that comes from the state for our 4-year-olds.
Okay.
So it's based on their enrollment last October 1.
Got
So
it.
October 1 of 2017.
Okay. And I know we've talked about preschool, you and I have talked about some
Uh-huh.
things, but is there a reason we don't have preschool in all of our schools now instead of having them in these other areas? Why we wouldn't bring in those students to our own schools?
Well, this was part of the grant way back in, I probably get the year wrong, 2008, I believe, to have those community partners be a part of the process. Rachel, I was calling Rachel too because she was one of the originators of this grant with the state, but that was one of the prerequisites, I believe, or one of those things that made it attractive and able to receive that grant at that time. But they have approximately 500 and probably 15 students that they serve. And really, I don't know that we could serve all of them in our elementary sites and our centers, because that's an additional, I mean, we serve in our centers about 365 students between Children's Village West and Children's Village Hoover, and that's 3 and 4-year-olds. And then our 9 sites, some of them serve up to 40. The others only have the space for 20 with the half-day programming. I mean, if we went to all half-days, I still don't think we would serve all of them because the number's so large.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Did you have another question for Rachel, or? Okay.
Is there any other discussion? All right, we'll call for the vote. Director Hayes?
Yes.
Director Potts? Director DeSalvo?
Yes.
Director Mayfield?
Yes.
Was that a yes?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And I'm going to abstain, and the reason is that I'm a member of Trinity Lutheran Church, and it just feels inappropriate for me to vote on something like that. May I have a motion regarding approval to name building?
Mr. President,
Director DeSalvo.
I move that the board approve the administration's recommendation to approve a name for the previous J.B. Young K-8 school, which is currently occupied by the Achievement Service Center and the J.B. Young Opportunity Center.
You want to read the rest of it?
I'm sorry. The following is a list of names proposed by the administration without making a recommendation. The board may choose from the list or propose and approve a different name. The Young Center, Achievement Service Center, J.B. Young Opportunity Center, the J.B. Young Center, Achievement Service Center at J.B.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Somebody has to have a thought.
What are we voting on?
The request here is that the administration has recommended that we approve a name for the previous J.B. Young K-8 school, which is currently occupied by the ASC and the J.B. Young Opportunity Center. So that's this whole building and everything in it. What do we want to name it? And the administration has offered.
But shouldn't the motion have a name in it?
It has,
4 names.
it has 5 recommendations of names. It didn't have a definite proposal for a single name, And I can imagine that that's because the board is likely to be all over the place on something like this. Superintendent Tate.
We couldn't come to consensus. These are 5 good ideas. I had no consensus, or I would have made a recommendation.
Thank you. And I'll say frankly that my idea is something totally different, and I don't even know if it's appropriate to present it right now, but I'd like to hear some comments if there are some. Director Hayes.
Well, just for the sake of simplicity, I guess my idea would be, since we were across the street at the Achievement Service Center, we are no longer there. This building was called the JB Opportunity Center, which we invited ourselves in, or we moved in. Now that we're here, the community has started calling this the JB Young Opportunity Center. Why would we make it difficult? Just call it the JB Young Opportunity Center.
Is there any other discussion?
I think the public still just calls it JB.
Is there any other discussion? I'll say that I think it is kind of important. The public might call it JB. They might call it the JB Young Opportunity Center. And I think that whatever the name is, it's going to be around for a long time. It's unlikely that a future board will want to just change the name for some reason. And I suspect that there's no sense of urgency to this. Is there? If there's no sense of urgency, and with this lack of enthusiasm on the part of the board for naming this, I would consider a move to, what's the correct word?
Table?
No, it's not table, I think it's postpone. Isn't it postpone indefinitely? Yeah, that if somebody wants to postpone indefinitely. Oh, do you have a comment, Mr. Maloney?
I'd like to make a comment if you
Go
don't
ahead.
mind. There is an allowance for signage in our construction contract. Our contractor would like to finish up and close out. We could simply remove the allowance if there's no decision to use that, to put the architectural letters on the canopy like it previously had, and you see a blank space above the reader board out there that is for the name of the building. So there's not a sense of urgency. You could take your time, and we can simply pull that allowance out of the contractor's contract. They ask us what letters we wanted ordered, and we said, we'll find out.
Okay. How much is the allowance?
I don't recall, probably $5,000–10,000.
Okay. And if you pull it out, do you have to get a new contract, or can you just
We would just go
postpone
out to
that?
a sign company and do it later.
Okay. Anyway, if a board member wanted to postpone indefinitely or not, otherwise I'm going to call the vote. Is there any additional discussion? Well, if there's no discussion, then it's going to be hard to call for the vote because we have two different ideas. One is call it JB and one is call it JB Young.
Well, we're not voting on it.
I understand, but we have a vote on the table. And there's a vote, there's a motion and a second on the table. And unless a board member wants to make a different motion, we will continue with this vote. Unless a board member says, I want to move to postpone indefinitely.
Mr. President,
Director Potts.
I wish we'd move to postpone this indefinitely.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, is there any discussion? All right, we'll call for the vote. Director Potts?
Yes.
And this is just the motion to postpone. Director DeSalvo?
Yes.
Director Hayes?
No.
Director Mayfield?
Yes.
And my vote is yes, motion carries. Thank you. So that is postponed. We'll move on to discussion items. We have a discussion item. We have 3 of them. Let's see here, it's 7:40. Director DeSalvo, how long will this consultant discussion take?
I'd say probably 15 minutes tops.
15
Tops.
tops?
Depends on how many questions.
All right, then why don't we continue with our meeting? Director DeSalvo, you want to lead the consultant discussion?
Thank you, President Johansson. At this time, I would like to introduce Paul Erickson. A couple weeks ago, the board had approved bringing in the services of Mr. Erickson. He is a consultant that has been started today looking at opportunities within services provided by administration. So Mr. Erickson has a brief presentation, and then I think he'll field a couple questions. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Can everyone hear me?
Is your light on?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Can you hear me? So I need to start with a few things I need to say before I actually get into the presentation. And first thing I'd like to say is that in my mind there are 4 heroes in the room tonight. In the midst of a meeting on Friday, I needed some emergency care, and Erica Goldstone, Superintendent Tate, President Johansson, and Director DeSalvo made sure that that occurred. And actually, President Johansson stayed with me until I was in the clear. So thank you very much, and it's nice to know that a consultant from out of town can get that sort of assistance and help from the school administration and board. So thank you very much. Second thing I want to say is I really would prefer not to have the term consultant used after tonight. It's true, I was an executive consultant on organization and operational efficiency. Director DeSalvo has a brief background in case anyone is interested, but I will say that I was very successful, and among my clientele I had 2 Fortune 100 companies that I worked with for a period of years, and I can tell you that's not easy to do for a single consultant. It usually takes a company. So anyway, I would prefer to be called an advisor. I'd like to discuss just a little bit what we're going to hear, what it is and what it is not. And if you're looking for a silver bullet, there is no such thing. It's like chasing the unicorn. You know, you'll never find it. I have been briefed. That there is a 5-year plan in place to address the immediate concerns on the budget. What I'm going to be talking about is not a quick fix. It is a change in culture. Okay? And what you're going to see is it takes a couple years of working on this before you're going to start seeing the impact, and it will go hand in hand with what your 5-year plan is hoping for. So with that being said, I'd like to go to a brief presentation where we talk about organizations that adapt a culture of ongoing continuous improvement are financially healthier. Now, what does that mean? That means that a culture implies that everybody in the organization is focused on the same goal. And the same goal is improving everything that you do, every process, every activity, to take waste out of the activity such that you can do it more effectively and more efficiently. So that's what we're talking about here today. I've made a presentation to those 4 members that I talked about for Friday. They asked me to come and present to the board, and that's what I'm doing. So, what is going to be the basis of ongoing continuous improvement, at least in the pilot that we're talking about? Well, I am sure that with the current administration and the current teachers and the principals of the district, every one of them thinks about improving their job on a daily basis. But what I don't believe you have is consistent tools and strategies for producing those improvements. And I'm here to tell you that organizations that are most effective in this use and provide their employees consistent strategies and tools throughout the organization. And the two that I'm proposing for the Davenport School District are value stream mapping, which I'm going to show you an example of, and process mapping. And the whole point of this is we're going to do a pilot project with one focused department. And in that department, we're going to see if we can use these tools and the strategy of lead time reduction. In other words, how long does it take from the start of an activity to the end of an activity to finish it? And I'll just give you an example of an activity. For instance, the hiring process on new teachers. Does it take an hour? Does it take a day? Does it take a week? Does it take weeks? Does it take a month? Does it take more than a month? And I can tell you that there's plenty of information and data out there that says the less time something takes, the more efficient and effective the process is. And what that does is free up resources so you can work on other things other than just your standard hiring and other types of things, other types of processes. So, what does that look like to you guys? It's actually from a manual called Learning to See, and it represented an operation in a shop. Remember, I was an industrial consultant, and most of the examples that exist are industrial, but I've also done this in the office. And basically, each of those boxes there represents somebody working on something in succession to accomplish a task. And I'm going to introduce colors to this. And this is going to take a bit of a stretch, but I'm hoping that I can very succinctly describe it so it's understandable. I have trouble with that sometimes. But green is when somebody is working directly on the task. In other words, it might be, in this case, somebody at a desk working to complete a task. Yellow stands for when there's preparations required before somebody can work on a task. And in a shop, I would say it's like if you were looking at a press, in between jobs you have to set up the press for different jobs. That might have a parallel, and in fact it does quite often in the office. And what that represents is stuff that really doesn't work directly on achieving the task, but you can't achieve the task without it. It's preparation. So what does the red stand for? The red stands for stuff that's not directly or indirectly related to completing a task. And you might say, why is that even happening? Now I'll just give you an example that it's not uncommon for people to have a lot of things in their in basket. The last thing gets pushed in the in basket gets worked on last. The amount of time it sits in somebody's in basket is red. In other words, it's sitting there waiting for some action to be done. And what I'm about to show you is typical, both for office and for shop. This is a value stream map, a process map. Whoops, I thought I'd gotten rid of that. This is a process map, and this is representative of what was on the previous page value stream map. And you can see that most of the time it takes to complete that task is red. Okay? So we don't even look. The low-hanging fruit is not the green. We're not going to put people with stopwatches standing around somebody's desk seeing how fast they work, because we know they're probably pretty darn efficient as it is. The low-hanging fruit is on reducing the yellow, the setup that's required before you can work on a job, and reducing or eliminating the red. And again, what you're gonna find is that when each task is analyzed and works on, and you have a before and after state, people will recognize that things happen easier, things are more streamlined. You're not gonna have any immediate significant savings, so to speak. But when you start doing this, and you start working on 6 or 8 or 10 or 12 processes that are all require working on by a single department or multiple departments, all of a sudden you reach a critical mass. And it's not only isolated is it less work and more streamlined, but all of a sudden you start realizing that you don't need as many resources to work on completing this task as you used to. So what we're looking at here is a parallel program to what your superintendent and his staff has put together for a 5-year program. So in the next year, year and a half, 2 years, we will have a parallel program that works on continually looking at how to improve the efficiency and streamlined process. And I want to show you an actual example of what happened in a shop. And I will tell you, it was a client of mine that actually, based on this and a couple other projects, got invited to present at the White House to a group of other major manufacturers. If you take a look, there's green up there. It's sort of hard to see, but there's green up there. And very little of the green changed, but you can see a significant reduction in red and a significant reduction in yellow. And this was a culmination of a lot of projects. It was one overall project, but we had a series of individual projects that contributed to this overall project. And I have to tell you that at the completion of this project, the cost of this operation, I'm talking about the entire factory, was down in the area of 7%. So it's not unusual if you can reduce the lead time by 50% to have a high single-digit reduction in the amount of resources needed to continue working on the process. The problem, not a problem, but the thing to realize, it's not a silver bullet. It takes an accumulation of projects, and it will happen over a period of months and years. So what could happen to get in the way of this? And I'm not talking about this district, I'm talking about in general and what I've seen, okay? I don't know enough about your district, okay, to talk about what exists in the district or not, but I will tell you that if you have strong, solid silos between departments, that will be counterproductive to what we're trying to do, okay? We're trying to produce a functional process flow rather than a departmental process flow, okay? The other thing that will get in the way, and typically what we call that is when you have silos where people are strictly focused on their own group and not what's happening elsewhere, we call that empire building. I hope you don't have empire building in this district. If we do, we're going to break them down. The other thing is sacred cows. Everybody know what that term means? It means something that's been around forever, and don't bother challenging how things are done today, because we know the best way to do things, okay? Sacred cows can get in the way. Now the good news is because we have a visual and a colored way of showing the potential of what can happen, it's really hard to defend sacred cows when you have data that you have to address. So what the vision for me is, in working with the client, and I consider you a client now, even though it's pro bono work, is that a couple years from now, every employee of this district has access to these tools, know how to use it, and when they come up with ideas for how to streamline what they're doing, they can present it to their managers, and their managers can present it to the superintendent to get the okay to go ahead. And the only way you can fight data is with data, and you take the emotion out of it. So anyway, I want to say one more thing. That's the presentation. I'm going to be open to questions later, but I want to talk a little about my heritage in Davenport, Iowa. So I went to school at Grant School in 6th grade. It's now a church. I went to Williams Junior High. I met Ralph in 1967. I've known him for 50 years now. I went to Davenport West. I was out of the class of 1973. Ralph and I were talking about this the other day. When we both went to college, we had hoped that we would develop some mentorship relationships with some of our professors. Professors in our classes. In my case, it never happened. None of our professors were open to that sort of thing. Luckily for me, some of my teachers in middle school and high school were. And I can tell you that I'm a better person and I'm a more successful person because of the education I got in the Davenport Community School District. And I'd like to point out 3 teachers who's probably, I don't know, Mr. Potts, maybe you were around, you recognize some of these names, but and Ralph certainly does, but everybody else looks to be a little bit young because they're probably passed on. But I want to mention 3 teachers and what they did for me. With the acknowledgement, there's probably still a lot of teachers in this district doing this for students like me, that 40 or 50 years from now, they'll still remember their names and give them credit for having made them into the person that they ended up being. So I'm going to mention those 3. Tom Hanlon, is that a name that rings a bell? He was an advanced placement English teacher at Davenport West. He taught me English, but what he taught me was how to think and critical thinking. And I've used that ever since I was in his class. And it's one of the biggest gifts I've ever had. I had another teacher who taught expository writing. Her name was Sheila Enderlin. And I could think, Tom Hanlon taught me to help me think, but expressing myself was always an issue. And she not only taught me how to express myself, but to express myself in a way that people would want to read what I was saying. And I'll just tell you that I between 2013 and 2017, I was a writer for Industry Week. I'm really proud of that. I wrote 73 articles for them, over 120,000 words. And I can tell you, without Tom Hanlon, and especially without Sheila Enderlin, that would have never happened. Okay? And finally, I was a tennis player for a couple years in high school, and I had a tennis coach named Bob McDonald. And I don't know what you know about coaches. I actually played tennis at Iowa. Coaches yell at you, okay? They do. And they talk loudly, and I have to tell you that Bob McDonald never yelled at me in 2 years. We had ups, we had downs, but he counseled me, and he taught me. And that taught me a lot as I became mentors to people that worked for me. I became an executive. So I owe a lot to the Davenport School District. I'm here for that reason. I also want to say something about Ralph and about the board and the superintendent. So I've known Ralph for 50 years. He's the type of guy, in my observation, always tries to do the right thing. And if you're on his team, he always has your back. Who wouldn't want to work with a guy like that? Speaking of having your back and being on a team, I've followed what's been happening between this board and this district in the state of Iowa. And you've always tried to do the right thing, especially having students in mind. And it's not just that you've taken votes. You've had skin in the game. You put personal risk ahead. You didn't put personal risk ahead of students' benefit. Who wouldn't want to work with an organization like that? So when Ralph approached me last winter about potentially coming in here and doing some of the things that I did for companies like Boeing and National Oil Well Fargo, I said, you're the type of people I want to work with. So hopefully this is going to work out. Hopefully I can be an advisor to you. I told a joke in one of the lighter moments Friday that I'll tell to you guys right now, and it's about consultants. Consultants aren't any smarter than any of you guys. We might have seen a few more things in a few more places, but typical client asks a consultant what time it is. You know what the consultant does? He grabs the guy's or the gal's wrist, looks at the watch, and tells them the time. It's not anything that you guys haven't thought of. It isn't anything that you haven't considered. I'm not any smarter than you, but I can provide confirmation that your ideas are either have worked in other places that I've seen, or I can show you the risk of those ideas. So frankly, I'm glad to be working with Ralph again. I'm glad to be working specifically with this board and this administration because of the courage you've shown. What's not to like? So thank you. Any questions?
Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Erickson?
I didn't hear that.
Does anyone have any questions, I said, for any board member questions? Well, I will say I'm very excited to have the opportunity to work with Paul. I think that he has good experience, good insight, and obviously a vested interest in our community and truly cares like the rest of us do. So I look forward to continuing to work with you, and I appreciate you taking the time to be here, and we're glad you're here.
I'm glad I'm here too after Friday.
Yes.
So one thing I forgot to mention, my mom was a teacher at J.B. Young Junior High. And I'll throw out a couple other names for you. This is back in the 80s and early 90s. People you might remember their names that she had in class would be the Craig brothers. You know, Curtis Craig, Roger Craig. And she taught reading. And she had a lot of kids that, she was the type of teacher that mentored kids. And she had a lot of kids that after they graduated would come back and see her as a junior high teacher to thank her. So that's the type of things you guys do for the community, and I hope the community appreciates you. I sure do. Thank you.
Any questions or,
Yeah.
oh, sorry, President Johansson?
I do. Thank you, and thank you very much, Paul, for being here tonight. I just wanted to make sure that the board is comfortable, because although we authorized some expenditures, this is it's a different approach. I don't know if it's radical, but I have confidence in Paul and in his experiences and in the application of his knowledge to what's going on in the district. And I know that some of this might be scary, but I was wondering, Director DeSalvo, if you could at least articulate a little bit, maybe not get into specifics, but how is the board responsible? How's it going to interact? And how is Paul going to interact a little bit with this? I mean, we've seen an idea, but how do we move forward?
Well, Paul will be here, and interject whenever you want to, Paul. Paul will be here for a week, observing, visiting with staff, spending a lot of time in seeing what they do, how they do what they do. After a week, he'll go back to his home And, yeah, in Seattle, Washington. And then he'll give us recommendations or findings, and then those things will be brought back to administration and to the board. So any changes that would be considered, or process improvement suggestions, recommendations, that would have to be discussed with administration. And then if it would impact the board, that would come back to us. But ultimately, what I would like to see as a result of this is, recommendations, findings. Do we move forward? Are these things that we need to consider? And what do we do to get these things maybe started in place? And as Paul mentioned, some of them, there's not going to be one item that's going to be a silver bullet, and it's not going to be something that's going to change quickly. So it will take time, but I think we're in a position as a district that we have to take advantage of every opportunity that's given to us, and I feel like this is an opportunity for us to take a look at some things, and an outsider looking in with a different set of eyes may have some very obvious things that maybe we all have not looked at or seen in that same manner. So
I might update, things are happening. I'm here, and we've already met today, and this is how it's going to proceed this week, okay? So what you're looking at, if I guess I won't back it up, the value stream map, which is basically the flow of activities it takes to complete a task. We were gonna target a specific department that had interactions with other departments in completing its task and required different levels of approval. Because what we found is one of the things that happens, what is typical, is one of the things that happens is you'll recognize that if you can cross-train people so they don't have to hand off so often, and if you can give some authority to people so they don't have to keep asking, is this okay, you can get dramatic streamlining. Well, so we've selected a department. I guess, is Erica still here? Okay, I'm going to embarrass her a bit, but Erica and I are sort of kindred spirits. We spent 3 hours together today, and we're going to focus on her department, because HR touches every department in the organization. And we've got 2 meetings scheduled for tomorrow and Wednesday, 3 hours, and we've already identified some processes. Like I said, the hiring process is one. We've got some other processes for intense interaction and approval with other departments, and approval is required. And we're gonna map those out and then throw up some ideas, just ideas. It's not a proposal, just to give a flavor for what might be, because we need, any proposals we make need to be well thought out and weighted, and we won't have time for that this week. But right now, President Johansson, I'd like to request a meeting with you, Dr. Kate, and Director DeSalvo, and Erica won't be here on Friday, but she gave me permission. I would like to show you what she and her people and I come up with the next 2 days on Friday, to give you a flavor for what we're talking about. So we need about 2 hours, probably in the afternoon if you got it. And if you're not all available, whoever's available, just so you know, and I need to thank Director DeSalvo. She's been working with me for the last 6 weeks and coordinating this visit and coordinating the people I need to get. She spent a lot of time on this, and it's not like she has nothing else to do. So thank you. Does that help?
yeah, President Johansson.
Yes, and I want to ask a question, but I wanted to say I've had the benefit of hours of discussion about the process with Paul, so I really have a pretty good understanding. And I am very thankful for Director DeSalvo doing this work, because if it had been dependent on me doing it, it probably would be another 2 years before we had this meeting. And so she's been able to stick with it, make those conversations happen. I'm thinking about my comments tomorrow morning at the SBRC, and we haven't heard from the rest of the board, and I want to make sure that the board, because I'm going to be representing the board tomorrow morning, and this might be one of the things that I can say is that the board is working on this. We have to do everything we can to demonstrate our fiscal responsibility to the district and to the state and to the SBRC and to the department. All of these things are important. And although it may be challenging for other board members to grasp all this, if there were anything that other board members could say to help me feel comfortable in representing the degree of confidence that the board has in these kinds of efforts, it would help me. So I'm just asking for any additional board comments if there's anybody that would comment.
Director Potts.
I think there's some benefit to, now back can hear me, yeah? I think there's some benefit to approaching systems like this in this manner. Because the one thing I heard you say that hit home with me was allowing people to decide so they don't have to wait for somebody else to decide for them. Because that mucks up, I mean, then it's just like, well, it goes here. Well, it goes here. Well, it goes here. When the decision can be made 4 steps earlier in the process. And when you empower people to be able to make those decisions, I think you get more out of them.
And I'm also going to say there's a few other things, but related to the number of handoffs. So if you were to go into a grocery store and you could get behind somebody that had a full cart, or you could get behind 8 or 10 people that had 5 items, which would you select? You'd be smart to select the full cart, because there's so much time going between customers that would get through fast. So the whole point is what you want to empower people not only to have the authority, but you want to empower people to do the work, and you really want to break down silos between departments and be function focused. In other words, focus on what it takes to do the job, not what on each department's responsibility is to do the job. And there's some rules of thumb, and they'll become apparent as we go forward. But you know, I've already sort of alluded to this. Your biggest asset in this district is your employees. Okay? And not just teachers, but all your employees. And the more you can get them to participate in continuous improvement, better the ideas will be. Okay? Now, typically, you know, I heard an earlier comment about outsourcing. Okay? And I'm not here to tell you whether outsourcing is good or bad, but what I am here to say is the people that are doing the services probably have some ideas about how to improve things, and we owe it to them to ask them about those. If we can, and if they don't trust us to give us their ideas, well then maybe outsourcing is what's going to happen. I don't know. But we have to continually improve in every area if we're going to become a world-class organization. And I've already told you, I think, you know, in my experience, the Davenport Community School District, at least for the students, is a world-class organization. It was for me.
I guess I'm leading this, aren't I? I think for that discussion tomorrow with the SBRC, I think it's important that we share with them everything that we're researching and investing time in and trying to show just again and again and again to them how much we do care. We are trying to make a difference here, and this is another one of those opportunities that we had to look at what we're doing and can we gain efficiencies, and do we have the opportunity to save in the long term, because we're looking for everything, and we've gone over so much and we continue to go over, and I think this is just another thing to add to that list of items that we're considering, and I would hope that they would respect what we're trying to do.
Just one comment, and Director DeSalvo, you got that one pager on me. That might, if President Johansson doesn't have it, you might want to carry that in his back pocket, because that might hold some credence to.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other discussion?
All right.
Okay.
Thank you, Paul.
If there is none, yeah, thank you very much for the presentation. We'll move on to School Budget Review Committee meeting scheduled for tomorrow. Superintendent Tate, it's 8:15. How much time will it take for this, do you think?
15 or 20 minutes.
Should we take a quick break?
It's up to you guys.
Anybody? I see a bunch of blank looks, and we'll just keep going. Okay, Superintendent Tate.
So I've asked Claudia to present some information concerning what will be happening tomorrow at the SBRC, and then I want to read what I'm going to say to them. And President Johansson, even if they're pushing us, you ought to say something, so I wouldn't worry about the time. We're last. We'll push them back for lunch or whatever it takes, but we ought to both be able to speak.
So I wanted to just kind of highlight some of the items from the report that the Department of Education staff writes and presents to the SBRC. The meeting tomorrow is another follow-up meeting from last March and last December due to having negative spending authority for the year that ended in June of 2017. So we're still back over a year ago. We are still requesting the modified supplemental amount of $4,056,000 for that year for the negative spending authority balance. We have filed our certified annual report for the year that ended June this year, 2018, and have negative spending authority. We've overspent again. So we will be required to appear before the SBRC again in December. Just giving you a heads up about that. In the DE's recommendation to the SBRC for tomorrow's meeting, they are recommending that the SBRC not approve our request for the modified supplemental amount for the fiscal 17 year. If the SBRC does not grant this, the negative balance from that year rolls forward into fiscal 18, making our negative balance from last year even larger. Back in March, the district presented a plan for the fiscal 18 year indicating we would make reductions of about $6.5 million, including a reduction of 20 FTE of staff. One of the exhibits that I had to submit to them for the meeting tomorrow was an update on that, and our actual reductions were $5.6 million and included a reduction of 23 FTE of staff. The detail of that is our original plan had certified staff reduction of $1,140,000. We actually reduced costs of $1,057,000, so that was $82,000 less than we had projected. Administrative staff reductions were projected at $207,000. We realized because we cut half an FTE less than originally planned, we reduced $147,000. So we reduced $59,000 less than originally planned. And non-certified staff, we had planned on a reduction of 5 FTE for $222,000. We actually reduced 5.68 FTE, but the savings was only about $173,000, so about $49,000 less than we'd planned on. We did do better in our early retirement incentives than originally planned. The original plan had savings of $200,000 in fiscal 18. We actually realized savings of $471,000. We had projected transportation efficiencies of 297,000. We realized only 82,000 of that. So we fell short about 214,000 on that line. We did reduce our department and school site budgets by 5%. However, we ended up actually spending more than we planned on in many of those areas. We have always allowed the buildings and the departments to carry over any unspent budget from the prior year. And many times departments and buildings are intentionally saving up for a larger purchase that they can't do all in one year. So I think we had some of those things happen. We had projected a reduction in spending of $347,000 for the schools and the departments. We actually reduced our spending by only $140,000. So we reduced $207,000 less than we planned on. We did plan on $875,000 use of other funds, which was using our PEPAL funds for allowable expenses that had previously been paid for in the general fund. We actually only identified $432,000 of those, so about half of what we'd planned on. Increase of miscellaneous income, which can come from rebates that we get on our purchasing card program. We've also started a new electronic payment plan through our business software, and interest revenue that we receive are our three biggest areas. We had planned on an increase in those miscellaneous incomes of $125,000, and good news here, we actually increased $706,000. Thanks to interest rates going up and using our electronic payment plans more. So we were $581,000 better than we had planned on being. We did take our 2 insurance holidays, so we met our goal there of $2.4 million. And one last item that was in the plan back in March was from new legislation for categorical flexibility, the Superfund. Our original thought was that we would be able to use unspent money in some of those categorical state funds, which we can do, but it didn't give us any more spending authority. So that item became a non-item. There wasn't any savings there in our spending authority. And we had originally planned on $750,000. So we didn't realize any of that. Overall, our reductions were about $951,000 less than we had originally planned on. And that information has all been presented to the Department of Ed and the SBRC. In March, we also presented information for the plan to reduce a little over $9 million in expenses for this new year that we've just started. I have updated those projections for the DE and the SBRC, and we're looking at about $8.4 million. And a lot of that change came from what we're actually going to realize in the early retirement incentives. So people that retired at the end of last school year, we realized those savings this year. And now that we have those actual numbers, I updated the SBRC with that. One of the other things that came out of the March hearing, the SBRC requested that we have an actuary review our plan for taking insurance holidays. They weren't certain that we really could support that in our self-insurance fund. We have done that. We have had our actuary do that. That information was presented to you back in September. We have revised our plan accordingly, and that has been presented in the exhibits to the SBRC, and the DE does seem to be accepting of that revised information. One other thing that the DE report to the SBRC refers to as an audit adjustment from fiscal 17. Technically, it was not an audit adjustment, but our audited financial statements for last year are different than the CAR, the Certified Annual Report. The CAR is what the DE uses to determine our spending authority balance. The CAR has to be filed no later than September 15th of each year. At that time, our books are still being finalized, and we're still working on that after that date. And our independent financial audit is usually not completed until the end of October or the beginning of November each year. In the usual course of closing the books and the completion of the audit, Entries are recorded on our books that cause our audited financial statements to be different than what was reported on the CAR. However, the DE does not allow any school district to amend their CAR. We have to wait until the following year's CAR is filed, and we record adjustments at that time for the prior year's report. The DE views those as audit adjustments. I personally take exception to that terminology, looking at it from an audit standpoint, but that's their terminology. Our fiscal 17 negative unspent balance, which is why we're going there again tomorrow, that we're requesting, was about $4 million. That included from fiscal 17 the negative balance of $2.4 million. In fiscal 18, the year that just ended and is still being audited but has been reported on the CAR, a negative unspent balance of $7.8 million. It's higher than estimated back in March due to a decrease in what we had projected for our special ed deficit of about $2.5 million. We also had to absorb $697,000 of special ed expenses that had to be moved into the general fund due to the special ed audit that was conducted earlier this year. Both of those things lower our maximum authorized budget, which then impacts our spending authority. We did have a $1.4 million more in miscellaneous income, so that added some back to our our maximum authorized budget. However, our total expenditures came in at $7 million more than were projected back in March. It appears that the adjustment to the fiscal 17 CAR of $4.7 million is a large portion of that increase, which I don't believe was included in the March projection. If we roll the fiscal 16, fiscal 17, and now the fiscal 18 balances together, the DE is saying that we have a negative unspent balance of $13 million. They take out of there the $1.2 million that you just approved a little bit ago for spending authority for the LEP. It's the timing of how and when they do that. That will end up getting added back in once they approve it, but their calculations right now, they have to take that out. After they add that back in, our total negative unspent balance will be $11.9 million. Without the reductions that we did make in fiscal 18, our position would be $5.6 million worse than that. But we need to make many more reductions in order to get out of our negative spending authority position. The DE and the SBRC will be monitoring our monthly financial statements. That was one of the exhibits that I had to present to them. They want to see that you are getting financial information on a regular and timely basis. So I will continue to provide those statements to you and post them on our website and notify the DE that that's being done. And they are going to be expecting us to make significant changes. And I'm sure that'll be what they'll be talking to us about tomorrow. So there's a brief rundown of what we've got.
Are you ready for questions?
Sure.
Okay. Are there any questions or comments from the board? Director Hayes.
Claudia, it's not that I envy you at all. There are several things that I had questions about, and I know you can't possibly answer every one of them, but one thing that really stuck out with me was in the transportation with the changes of the bell time and the bus schedules. Do you have any idea how we fell so short in that?
I believe the bell times were just changed for this school year. So what we're looking at is where we ended last school year.
Okay.
So
thanks.
that isn't part of last year's numbers.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else? Director DeSalvo.
So we heard from Representative Winkler, that she had talked to someone at the DE, and they had said, this is all they're looking for, and I think that's what we submitted and said that we're going to discuss tomorrow. It's hard to anticipate where this is going to go, but I guess I'm concerned about looking at some of these numbers and how there's no way we can make this look any different or any better. I mean, I think we show them our efforts that we've made. I think, again, that's very important. When, did you say you have to go back in December again?
We will, since we were negative in fiscal 18 also.
Okay. I guess I don't really have a question. It's not good no matter how you look at it, and I don't know that it's gonna come out favorable. But what that process will be, I guess we'll find out tomorrow.
Yep.
Okay. Thanks for the data. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Anybody else? I got a couple of questions. The special ed movement from one fund to another, you said it was like 697,000 or something. And so that was originally, we made the assumption it was special ed expenditures, but I think the way I understand it is it should have been general ed expenditures, right?
Yes,
Is that
it was.
correct?
Yeah, it was staff at Keystone.
Right.
That were coded 100% to special ed account codes.
Right.
And in the course of that audit, I believe there were general ed students that
Yeah.
were also being served.
Right.
So they said you can't charge 100% of certain number of staff to special ed if they're also serving general ed students.
And I understand that part, I mean, the concept. It's a fair chunk of money, and what I'm wondering about is, it just seems like the way that it's being apportioned, I still have a little bit of a hard time, but did we get funding for the special ed expenditures that were made when we thought it was special ed, that somehow, so that's not an issue, it's just we accounted for it in
Right.
the wrong column.
Right. After that audit, we made the appropriate entries on our general ledger
Right.
to move that amount of expenses out of special ed account codes to general ed account codes, and that was done before our CAR was submitted. And it's one of the pieces of submitting the CAR is there's a piece of special ed reporting, and that's how our special ed deficit is determined. So those expenses had been moved out appropriately before that report was filed.
Superintendent Tate.
So following that question, since we are changing Keystone so that mostly it's going to be special education, we can bring back that funding, so we're going to see some savings this year. We don't know how much, but that funding will go back, so it'll be all special education, because in fact, there won't be any general education students out. There won't be as many general education students. There'll still be some.
Okay. There are some other things that you said that I couldn't keep track of. Let me ask one other question, though. In the total FTE count, however you've calculated and measured it in 2018, what was our net?
What I did to prepare these exhibits to give to the DE, I looked at only non-categorical, therefore general fund positions, because we've had increases in the number of special ed teachers. And I did provide them some supplemental information that they requested on TLCS staffing and special ed staffing and some other categorical funds. But what I was presenting to them as our main exhibit for general fund savings was non-categorical staff. And we had, we reduced 16.32 FTE of teachers, 1 FTE administration, and 5.6 FTE of non-certified support staff.
Okay, and then in your interpretation of the March meeting, will they consider the non-categorical only, or, because I thought that there was still this thinking that they wanted total categorical and non-categorical, and if you added both of those together, What's our net?
We would have increased.
We'd have a net increase.
Yes.
And is that going to bother them?
I can't speak to that.
I'm just saying, what do you guess?
I think it will.
Okay. All right. Well, it should be an interesting meeting. Superintendent Tate, do you have anything to add on this?
I just wanted to read you what I'm going to read tomorrow for them, because it addresses some of the things that you've talked about today. So you'll hear and you'll know what you want to say then. So I'm going to start out, give my thanks to Carla Schimmelfinnig for her continuous liaison with our new CFO to assist with the process and submission of exhibits in preparation for the meeting. She was very, very accommodating. She made at least one trip down here. I would like to comment on several items found in the Department of Education summary and analysis provided to you for this hearing. Before I do that, I want to point out that the top one or two things that the board has focused on and emphasized during the last year is the need to provide and follow a budget which results in a positive unspent balance. To that end, the board worked with administration to construct a 5-year budget reduction plan called Vision 2020, which identifies essential changes to the operations to put the district financials into a positive unspent balance. Almost every monthly committee of the whole meeting and normal business meetings for several months have included serious and in-depth discussions about finances. 3 large public forums were conducted to discuss elements of the Vision 2020 reduction plan. Hundreds of people from the public weighed in at forums and regular meetings to provide input, ideas, and criticisms concerning proposed plans. I previously mentioned to the SBRC how difficult it is for administrators and boards of education to reduce operations, even in the face of critical situations. We're always looking at the positives and trying to find a silver lining in every situation. It is even more difficult for students, parents, and the public to embrace the need for changing the way we do business. In the face of this reality, the Davenport Board continues to make tough decisions needed to reduce general fund expenditures, even in the face of public criticism and opposition. Looking now at the financial information provided in your packets, in 2017-18, we exceeded our mark on early retirements and increased miscellaneous incomes. We fell short in transportation efficiencies, reducing the budgets, increase in use of other funds and new legislation. A major and unexpected change to the 2017-18 budget was a result of the special education audit, which necessitated moving a large number of special education positions to the general fund due to incorrect financial coding. The requirement to make the corrections in 2017-18 reduced the budget by over $600,000. As we look at the current year's budget, we met our projections for reduction in non-categorical staff. We missed the amount on the early retirement incentive, but the increase in reductions to our substitute budget and reductions in department and school site budgets provides balance to our projections. The board has engaged a consultant, an advisor, who is assisting the district to conduct value stream mapping throughout the entire administrative system to help us become more efficient and eliminate positions. We project a drop of enrollment of 200 students this year. Preliminarily, uncertified numbers indicate that we may experience a much smaller enrollment decrease than anticipated. I need to point out that it is easy for me, the board, and this committee to look at charts and make judgments about the success or failure of budget plans, but all of us need to think deeply about the impact these reductions have on students, parents, and the community. For example, changing bell times to reduce transportation routes is a huge issue in our district. Meeting after meeting and forum after forum, we heard from parents who testified how much these changes impacted their ability to get to their jobs and the negative impact on home life due to middle school students returning home so late. Additionally, the reduction to the substitute budget requires schools to change the way they cover classrooms during teacher absences, and in many cases, these options are not good for education. The 5-year budget reduction plan, which goes through school year 22-23, includes other difficult and controversial options, including $1 million in reduction of administrators and administrative support, $750,000 in outsourcing, a school closure, and converting from block to traditional schedule at the high schools, just to name a few. And then you be on.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there any additional discussion, Director DeSalvo?
Is there any way that we can get updates when the meeting is concluded from like an email or some sort of recap of how things went? I can only anticipate, but unfortunately I am not able to attend. I have a work commitment, and so I will be wanting to know how things went, if someone could share that with me.
I'd say we'll figure a way out if we remember.
Thank
and
you.
we'll try to get you
Thank you.
an update. Thank you for the
And good
question.
luck.
Any other discussion? Director Hayes.
Quick question, Dr. Tate. In the initial draft, it was 1.5 million in reduction administrators and administrative support. Did that change from 1.5 to 1?
Yes, I have always said that you can cut those many positions, but you're going to have to somehow supplement and get additional help. So I've changed it just to be realistic to 1 million.
Thank you. Any additional discussion on this issue? Brady, you haven't said anything tonight. Any comments? Thanks for sticking with us. We're just about done. All right. So that's the end of that discussion item. Thank you very much, Claudia and Superintendent Tate. Board members attending the National Association of School Boards. I don't know that this was brought up by Director Mayfield recently. I would just open it for discussion amongst the board. Director DeSalvo.
I'll be honest, when I first looked at this, it concerned, I'm just looking at the dollars, and I hate that, and I hate that we can't take advantage of opportunities because of money. But that was the first thing I thought of, is how can we afford to go?
Okay. Is there any other discussion? Director Mayfield.
Yes. I agree. No matter what we do, it's costly. I think when we send our administrators to, whether it's national conferences or local conferences such as Des Moines, it still comes at a cost. So the question is, do we get to get information directly from other board members in conferences, or does all our information basically come through administrators? If we do not have the freedom, and when I say freedom, I'm not talking about spend anything you want, but at least an opportunity to go to other meetings and see what people have been successful with, whether it's a national meeting, whether it's a smaller meeting. But if we go to none at all, then we're not fully informed of what's out there and what's been happening, unless we basically sit here and wait for a report from administration. Now, I'm not saying that administration does not bring us accurate information. What I am saying is that is their perception, and that's what they went out and gathered. I think when it gives us an opportunity to hear it directly from other people that are involved on school boards, it gives us a whole different source of information. And so I think that is so important to us being educated on what the possibilities are, as well as the other people that are very important, that administrators and teachers get the kind of training and rubbing shoulders with people that do similar work. I think it's the same thing for school board too. We can say that school board members don't need it because of the cost, but we could probably say that about any level of the work we do here, whether we're talking about teachers, whether we're talking about administrators. It definitely makes a difference where your information comes, and having the opportunity to speak with people that are trying to deal with the same issues.
Did you have more? I just want
Not
to make
at
sure
the
you're done.
moment.
Okay. Is there any additional discussion? I just want to point out a couple of things. We do have the Rural School Advocates of Iowa is coming up. I just looked at it and I lost it. October 24th in Ankeny, and that's an opportunity to meet with people in Iowa and its school board representatives and superintendents that participate in the RSAI. And in November, there will be a convention, and I couldn't see it here, but it's probably at in Des Moines, that will be the Iowa Association of School Boards. And the Iowa Association of School Boards represents almost all of the districts in the state, and it really is school board focused. There's a lot going on there. There's resolutions. It's a great experience. And then we also have the UEN that will be occurring at about the same time, probably concurrently, and it's usually coincidentally with the IASB. And I think that normally the board has always encouraged participation in those types of activities. The costs are quite a bit less, both for the registration and then of course for the travel. But I think it accomplishes at least part of what you've brought up. And the other thing this board hasn't really discussed is the board budget, which I suspect we're already over budget because we don't have a lot of money in our budget. And so this discussion here, I think, is really where do we want to go? And so I don't know that we're going to come to a conclusion. This is just a discussion. And so I don't think there are strong positions all the way around, and probably not a consensus. Director DeSalvo.
I can't recall the last time we saw our board budget. I know it was, we made some pretty, we made our 5% or 10% cut or whatever, but I guess if we could see what we have to spend, then maybe we could look at some of these and decide if it's even possible.
All right. Thank you for that
But that
suggestion.
can wait. Claudia's a little busy right now, so, or Mary.
Yeah, we'll get it tonight.
I'm in no hurry, but that would help me decide if we could afford
We'll
these
try to
things.
have that probably by the next board meeting. Any other discussion? Okay, thank you very much. Are there any administrative reports? No. Are there any board requests? I haven't seen any. That being the case, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
I only heard one aye.
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 Okay, thank you. This meeting is adjourned.